Welcome to Soul Thrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Soul Thrive podcast. Today's guest is Megan, the founder of Wider Visions and a certified executive coach for founders and leaders. Megan's mission is to make coaching tools more accessible through guided journals and products. And she has collaborated with some amazing voices like Alex L. and worked with brands like Athleta and Bumble. And her first journal, the Vision Journal, is all about helping you clarify your vision and build a life aligned with it. Megan's story is also deeply personal. She's overcome anxiety, autoimmune illness, and perfectionism. I need to know more about this. Welcome, Megan. It's so nice to have you.
We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me here. And that was such a beautiful introduction. You did a great job summarizing.
The Virgo, see, it's that little Virgo in her with the perfectionism component.
Yes, that's why I was like, we have to talk about all of the things. But maybe first question, I know I typically always ask people what they do and how they help others. But this time I'd like to start with, what is your why? How did you get into this? What propelled you towards this path?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And I love starting there. I would say my why is I love helping people expand beyond their current identity. I love it when someone has a really stretchy dream and they don't believe it's possible, and helping them realize no, this dream is meant for you. You wouldn't be called to do this. It's like a nudge from your soul. It's like a nudge of your future self telling you this dream is the perfect pathway for your growth, your healing, your transformation. And then I'm really passionate about helping people get the tools to create that internal and external change.
I love that. What was your own personal journey because we talked a little bit about you've gone through anxiety and you had an autoimmune illness. And so how did you kind of map out your experience? And then I know that you got these beautiful journals. Did it start off with your own process of journaling and then you just loved it so much? And then you were like, I'm going to make this for everybody, which I think is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, my journey has been really windy. To answer your question, I have been journaling since I was itty bitty. I, always say if I had to take one thing for my house, I would take my journals because I have journals from when I was in preschool. You too?
Yeah.
I used to cut out Leonardo DiCaprio and all my journals and put him in there as my visuals.
That's not journaling.
No, that's amazing.
That's what I would visualize celebrities and stick them everywhere.
You totally ended up with him, right?
Maybe that's the Leo in you, the Leo rising.
100%.
Yeah. And I definitely
star sign kind of energy for it. That's hilarious.
Totally.
But yeah, sorry. That's my little side note. That's my little side story.
Oh no, and I had a major crush on Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, Titanic, I saw it 4 times in the theater.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
I can relate.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But getting back on point, okay?
Journaling.
Yes. And so
not clipping out Leo's head.
Journaling has definitely been a practice of mine from the beginning of just self-reflection, dreaming, being able to kind of dissect, okay, what's my inner voice versus that more critical voice. For me, growing up, I always struggled with my sense of self-worth and confidence. I had a really loud inner critic and perfectionist, so I can really relate. And that manifested to panic attacks, anxiety, bouts of depression, really young, disordered eating. And for me, I was always kind of measuring my sense of self-worth to these external benchmarks. So getting good grades, being seen as really successful, out of college, getting a good job, starting to climb the corporate ladder. And even though from the outside, it looked like I had kind of everything going for me, inside I wasn't happy. So I was really high functioning, but at the same time, I was highly, highly critical of myself. And it all came to a head that I found myself in New York City after college in a job in advertising. And it was a really, okay, you can relate. I feel like our stories, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was a really toxic work environment. We were losing the client. My boss was like verbally abusive, and that like can't make a mistake, need to be perfect, need to do everything right. Side of myself just like really, really flared. And I was crying every day to work. I was experiencing panic attacks in the bathroom. I was in this state of like really long, prolonged, now I know, fight or flight,
Right.
that it triggered an autoimmune illness, fibromyalgia. And so I was 24, 25, and it's a chronic autoimmune pain condition. And so it made me like really, really tired, so exhausted. My body hurt. It felt like I had mono. And I just didn't know what was going on. And it was this kind of all-time low of my mental health is at its worst. My physical health is at its worst.
Right.
And from that place of like desperation, it forced me to be like, okay, I need help. And so that looked like going to therapy and starting to understand, building tools of self-awareness and really, getting clarity around this is an inner voice that is not true. Like separating me automatically believing my thoughts and stories that I had about myself for 25 years as truth, as no, that's a highly critical protector self. And this is kind of really my inner self, my loving self, my really forming that sense of like self-compassion. And then the other piece of it was that mind body piece. So learning about breath work and meditation and the importance of nervous system regulation, and to even do that subconscious reprogramming, our body needs to be in a state of safety to be able to access and do that like reframing cognitive work as well. And so that was like the first major chapter in my healing journey. I think for so many of us, like it's easy to look at before and afters and it to feel like it happens overnight. But the truth is this journey has been, like 15 years in the making for me, and slowly gaining tools along the way. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping create more accessibility so that it can be quicker and more supportive for other people. And so then the next big step was I started my first business, Moxie Made, and I used to host intentional events for women to get mentorship and a space to connect in New York. And that's where I collaborated with Alex L. and Taryn Toomey of the class and brands like Athleta, Bumble, Kendra Scott. And I wish I could say that I like started that business right when I felt inspired about the idea. But the truth is, ladies, I actually sat on the idea for 4 years.
Yeah, it takes a while. You got to birth it. You can't just
Yeah.
impulsively do it. There is no urgency with it either, I think sometimes, which goes into the conversation we've had many times where it takes a while for you to visualize it the way that you want it. You want to create it in a specific light, and you want a solid foundation with it. Otherwise, as quick as it comes, it leaves, right?
Yeah.
But with a solid foundation, there's sustainability. You can keep going. You can keep creating from that place. So
That's
that's
so
beautiful to hear. Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is like such a beautiful, intentional way of creating, of like, what I'm hearing from you. It's like that feeling of like self-trust with yourself and the universe, and like allowing the dream and the vision to come in pieces and not rush the process.
Yeah.
In this case, it was actually, I just didn't have the self-belief in myself. I had a lot
Okay,
of
that makes sense too.
imposter syndrome.
And why you're helping people
Yes,
get there.
yes, yes.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of feeling of like, who am I to do this? Like, well, is this even a good idea? Will I fail? It was this kind of two sides of myself where I really wanted to explore this vision and I really didn't believe in myself. And eventually I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? I dove in and I felt like I was really building my purpose. And then COVID hit. And
Lovely COVID
overnight,
redirection.
redirection, yes. Trusting the pivot. And for me, it was this moment of like, okay, events went away overnight, my revenue went away overnight. And I had to really sit with and realize in a big way, it was a big reckoning of how much of my self worth and self identity was really propelled up by how productive I was, how successful I was as a career woman, as an entrepreneur, being connected in New York, all of these external things.
Yeah, I feel like the perfectionism can kind of kick in even at like when you look at your new venture, like those same old like patterns can come up. Well, now I have to be perfect when it comes to these events and all of these other things I'm trying to create. So I
Totally.
wonder if that also came up, right? It's
Yeah,
like
it
a new
definitely
thing you're trying to
did.
birth, but the old programming is still there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely helped me realize now, reflecting back, it's like you can have the vision, you can have the clarity of like what you want to create in your life and what feels meaningful. But if your internal mindset isn't aligned with the actions, you're going to feel resistance all along the way. And that's why having tools to kind of shift your subconscious and take aligned action are so important. For me, it ended up being the biggest blessing because it forced me to look at that and forced me to like really realize like, wow, I feel like nothing without these things. And who am I? And is that enough? Like, in this moment, is that enough? And now looking back, 5 years later, it really feels like my life is really different in that, yes, externally, I haven't had a panic attack in 10 years. I've built a completely different business that I sold a year ago. After scaling it to $1 million, I feel really confident
Amazing.
speaking on stages. But internally, the things that no one sees are like I feel much deeper sense of contentment with myself. I have a much different relationship to my work. And so, I'm so passionate about building wider visions, but I don't need it to be successful or I don't need it to be on my timeline in
Yep.
order for me to feel good about myself, which I definitely did with my first business.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think life is a lot more about the process than the destination. I used to really live life on like, when I get to this place, I'll finally be happy. And so at Wider Visions, I really want to create more accessibility to tools like mindset management, nervous system regulation, better emotional awareness, vision clarity, all of these practices that I work with on my one-on-one coaching clients because I think all of those past versions of myself just simply didn't have the tools to better understand herself and better create change in her life. And yeah, and so that's what I'm really passionate about.
Well, you can tell. I mean,
Yeah.
and the conditioning too. You can see how the time, the pause, the experience, the reflection, right? You took the time to reflect when when the redirection occurred. It was a time to reflect. It was time to go internal. It was time for you to kind of create that foundation for yourself within yourself, so that you're solid enough to execute all your intentions and really trust in being brave enough to go into the direction and just make it happen, which is like a really, I mean, it takes bravery at the end of the day, no matter what, but it's beautiful, like at the same time. And then I like how you're saying it doesn't define you, right? Because it really our successes, things outside of ourselves, experiences that are happening to us. We should be embracing the good and the bad of it and then kind of not letting it define us at our core, but learning through the lessons of those experiences and then being able to separate and be like, okay, I had that experience. I can pause, chill. I don't have to go to the next goal. And it's not good or
Totally.
bad. Right. So that's, I think, like the state of mind that a lot of people need to get to, because I think most people just want the next thing, right? Oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing that I'm going to do? And it gets like for you, I know as a perfectionist, like it gets so overwhelming. I have OCD. So my brain goes like, it's got to get done now. You need to figure this out now. I get obsessive compulsive about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because I have so many tools in my toolbox, I have the ability to kind of be like, okay, you need to like shut it all down and like take 2 days off so that you have the capacity, because you're so overwhelmed, you've overwhelmed your nervous system. You've created a narrative in your mind. The critic is coming out. You're not going to be able to get it perfect. And so I understand it from this point of perspective, from like the OCD perfectionist. And from yours, it's more like imposter syndrome, I think, comes up a
Yeah.
lot
Or
with
just
perfection.
wanting things to be like to a certain standard, and that standard doesn't even make sense to most people. It's like a standard that actually, this is related to the question I wanted to ask, but like just to touch on that, it's more so like when you say, oh, perfectionism, it's not about like what is perfect. Perfect to you is different than perfect to me, and it's different to perfect to you. So for me, the perfectionism is the standard that I think maybe I got from my mom or maybe our community or like our culture or whatever. And it's like, it's not, a lot of that stuff is like not realistic. And also it doesn't mean that it's perfect in somebody else's eyes. So I'm like, it's so relative. Like it's completely relevant at the end of the day. But I wanted to ask you about that relationship with the inner voice, with the inner critic. Did you ever explore
Mhm.
sort of like where that came from? And because it was so strong, how did you work with it to, um, not to tame it, but like, how did you actually start to work with it so it didn't run your life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I just want to acknowledge what you both said. I think it's interesting, no matter how kind of our inner voice or that more inner critic or that protector self, however you want to label it, manifests, right? Whether it's perfectionist tendencies or OCD. I do think, and I'm curious from both of your perspectives, I think a big core emotion that we're seeking is safety. I think, like with perfectionism, it is or safety and control, right? It's like as humans, we're wired to want to, we're wired against uncertainty. Into our brains, what's uncertain, it feels unsafe. And so with perfectionism, I think it's like safety from the perspective of, okay, if I'm perfect, no one will think badly of me. I'm not doing anything wrong, therefore I'm safe. Or with OCD, and I'm curious if this is your experience, but it's like if I do these things, that I'm in control and I'm safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, it comes
Yeah, and
back
so
to
it's
core wounds, all of them. We actually just
mhm.
literally just did a whole, I just taught a whole workshop on core wounds on Saturday.
Mm,
Fundamentally, that is one of the things that leads, whether we like it or not, based on those limitations. So, yeah, absolutely. My core wound is unsafety, right? Your core
mhm,
wound was,
It's like, I can't be myself, which is like, I can't make a mistake.
yeah.
mm. Mine is I'm not enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
There you
I'm
go.
not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
I'm always struggling to like striving to kind of prove my worth or my worthiness. And I think a big part of the medicine is, and it is about cultivating a relationship with yourself, is like radical self compassion in those moments of like, wow, okay, in moments of being vulnerable, that inner critic comes out, that perfectionist comes out. Okay, Meg, that old self is coming out. Can I just be radically compassionate with myself? Can I like just sink in and remind myself I love you? You're safe. It's all okay. You don't have to be anything than what you are right now. You are enough. And I think a big part of cultivating that radical self compassion is like really getting curious about our emotional experiences and about the narratives that we're telling ourselves. Because I know for me, for so long, I just thought that voice was true. That voice
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
saying, if you make this mistake, or if you answer this question wrong, or if you do this, you're worth nothing, right? And I just thought that was true until I realized, oh wow, that's one way to look at it, but there's 1,000 different ways to look at a situation. And can I choose a perspective that's kinder to me? Or can I be curious what's behind that? And, when I think this thought, it makes me feel this way and it makes me show up in my life in this way. And who would I be without that thought? It's like the Byron Katie's 4 questions. It's like, is it true? Can you 100% believe it's true? Who are you without that thought? And really just starting to form that relationship of reflection and curiosity and then radical self-compassion, loving ourselves in the process because it's messy. And for me, that's really helped me come to this place of really building that like self trust and self worth and self confidence as a muscle and as a relationship, as something that we have to continue to grow.
Absolutely. You said it beautifully.
Yeah. It's almost like,
And
did you ever go ahead?
oh, I don't think I answered where it came from. I think for me, um, it was a mixture of our parents are teachers to us, and I think we're teachers to our parents. And for me, my stickier relationship was with my dad. And then also growing up, the girls that I, was in school with were just not very nice to me. And for
Mm.
so long, I used to be like, well, kids are bullies to most people. Like, get over it. It's not that big of a deal. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, wow, relationships and connection are one of my number one values. And what's most, like, I most value in my life. Of course, feeling like I wasn't accepted by my peers would feel deeply, deeply painful for me. And I think the combination of those things really led to this kind of mean inner critic protector self.
Well, easier to punish yourself before having someone else punish you outside, right?
Exactly.
It comes
Yeah.
down to that at the end of the day. It's I would rather reject myself and
Hmm.
punish myself than have someone outside of myself have that control over me to that degree because or shame me or embarrass me in front of other people. So yeah, that one's it's a deep wound when you have something like that. And so it's amazing that you recognize it and that you have the ability to kind of navigate through that. And yeah, father wound is a tough one. A mother wound's a tough one when you're working and navigating through those aspects. And the I'm not good enough aspect, I always find is very much tied to the father wound because you're always trying
That's
to
interesting.
yeah, you're always trying to, do you see me? Did I do good enough? Like,
Hmm.
and we look for that from our father. It's our way of making that connection with them. And then we start to push ourselves in certain directions sometimes to try to please to make that connection, right? With our fathers
Hmm.
at the end of the day
So
when it comes to
interesting.
success
Yeah.
and perseverance and all the other fun stuff that comes with that. So yeah, it's an interesting wound for sure.
Yeah. And the inner critic, I mean, we worked on that stuff so for so long in like so many workshops. I think that's one of the toughest parts internally to sort of like make it come to the table and like negotiate with you. And I know we did a lot of parts
Commitment.
work.
Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
parts work.
Did you ever, I'm curious, did you ever like when you gave that like critic a voice, did you ever like give it a name or a personality? Like how did you
Mm.
actually, I'm so curious, like how did you integrate it to an extent where it doesn't run your life anymore? Like was journaling a big part of it? Like what was your process in integrating that part? Because I feel like a lot of people talk about it, but it's like the Virgo in me wants something more tangible.
I just
So
want depths all the
yeah,
time.
I'm curious.
I love that.
It's like
Steps.
Yeah.
It's like
step
just
two,
I'm
step three.
curious how people have done it, right? Because what works for one person doesn't work for the other. So what was your process like?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long process. I think, initially therapy, I did a lot of reparenting and it wasn't IFS parts work, but it was a lot of like, okay, here's my inner child. What is she experiencing? Here's like adult Megan. Here's like higher self, connected to God, connected to love Megan, and really starting to kind of like separate out these pieces of me or parts of me and how they were impacted and really looking. I think therapy can be so transformative in helping you understand, okay, my past, how it's impacting my present. And then from coaching, once I got my certification and additional training in hypnosis and NLP and EFT, breath work, it's that piece of like, okay, here's where I am today and where do I want to be? And then what are practical tools to help close that gap? And so now, once I had that kind of foundational knowledge of like, okay, here's where some of like my big T, little t trauma comes from. Here's where some of those like core wounds, as you talked about, maybe where they stem from. And then I think the next piece is how do I want to change it? How do I want to transform it? Who do I want to be instead? And my daily practice for me is journaling. And so for me, I am very reflective about my emotions. I think, our emotions are really like the thermometer of our subconscious thoughts. Most of our thinking, 95%, they say, 90 to 95% is subconscious, with 5% being conscious. So your emotions are kind of the first clue into what's going on beneath the iceberg. And I journal every morning, and if I'm feeling a sticky emotion or, I'm feeling some sort of sensation in my body, whether it be a tight chest, my shoulders are hurting. Okay, those are clues for me as to reflect what might be going on beneath the surface. And it always is inviting curiosity. And I think when we have self compassion, it allows us to be more open to exploring without judgment. And so oftentimes that looks like, okay, I'm feeling this way. What might be going on? Okay, it's this, I'm telling myself this about this circumstance, or this makes me feel like this one time in my past that it's really kind of dredging up those feelings. And then from there, it's kind of asking yourself, what are other ways to look at this? Is this the only true way to look at this? Or are there perspectives I'm not considering? And what is a more loving way to speak to myself? And so it's connecting to that higher version of myself who I think is eternally loving, who believes like fully in my potential, and really reconnecting to like the source to bring in that more loving perspective. And that's why I think it's an internal dialogue. And for me, it really starts with the foundation of self-awareness, and then self-compassion, and then self-curiosity is like core ingredients to be able to reflect on it. And I think those are muscles you build, why coaching and having like actual tools helps you start to bridge that gap in doing self-coaching later on in the process.
Yeah, I love how you connected the body because you often ask us like about like when we're experiencing an emotion, it's like where is it sitting? Or like to tap into like your lower back pain
Beautiful.
or shoulder, or what does it mean? Is it right, which is masculine? Is it left, which is feminine? Like what is, because all of that comes together.
Body
Yeah.
awareness is very important. And I also say too, when we're doing a lot of the parts work or we're doing shadow work and we're diving into the inner child perspectives and I'm doing all of that navigating in those experiences, I always tell people like, did you tune into that breath? Did you tune into the way that your body just opened up? Did you tune into the way that your body
Mhm.
just eased into this experience right now as they're going through their visualization? And that's helping them cue into intuition and truth and perspective and the reframe and so much more just by even just awareness of that breath, awareness of that
Yes,
sensation shift, which then obviously creates even a ripple effect when it comes to the energy that's around us, right? So it's really
totally.
fascinating. This work is like I love all of it in every possible way,
And it's
which is
all the
like
pieces
beautiful.
that come together.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, learning the nervous system regulation and the body more somatic pieces was such an aha and unlock. And, part of my story with my fibromyalgia, and when I was younger, I had a kidney disease. And so I was very disconnected to the body. My body didn't feel like a safe place. And so I used to live very much up in my head. And I think some types of therapy, like CBT, very, very helpful, but also it leaves you more in the thought process
Right.
versus body work. It was huge unlock when I was like, wow, in order to access your subconscious, the lower kind of brainwave states, and even to be able to do the reframing work in the beginning, you need to feel safety in the body, and how powerful
Mhm.
breath work is as a free, accessible tool to allow you to do that is just so cool. And so I think it's, all of these different modalities together have a big role in our healing process.
Agreed.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned NLP. You're like the third person this week to mention NLP. What I love about it is the reframing. There's this one exercise we used to do, like where you would sit in a chair and you would like talk about a problem, and then the practitioner would ask you to sit in another chair and imagine
Hmm.
you're someone else and you're looking at yourself and your problem from a different perspective.
Mhm.
So that's one of my like I love NLP for
Yes.
that. And then of course the body connection too, which took me like forever to get into and
It's
tap
always a
into
journey.
because it's always mental. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always mental. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
we
that's where
all
we start. And
operate.
I think and I think for a lot of women, we're there's so much focus on our bodies too that I think sometimes our bodies don't always feel like a safe place, but that's what can make them feel so powerful once we like take back that agency and we can feel embodied and then also feel that sense of security, knowing that we have tools to better take care of ourselves.
Agreed. Very much so.
Love it.
Megan, thank you so much. This was all so good. I actually, stayed quiet. Usually I interrupt a lot. No, but I
This
think
went by
that-
so fast.
yeah, I know. It was great. I loved it. Everyone's going to love all this information. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on to our podcast, sharing your experiences, sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And we'll see you in Austin.
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to show you both around. This was so lovely. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.